Have you ever wondered how something as mighty as the Roman Empire, a civilization that shaped the Western world, could just fall apart? It wasn't one single event, like a final battle in a movie. It was a slow, complex unraveling, a domino effect that lasted for centuries. Today, we're going to break down, step by step, how this colossal empire met its end. Let's rewind the clock. Picture Rome at its peak, around the 2nd century AD. During the reign of the 5 good emperors, the empire stretched from Britain to Mesopotamia, a powerhouse of engineering, law, and military might. Pax Romana, or Roman peace, had brought unprecedented stability and prosperity. But beneath the surface, the seeds of its decline were being sown. The first major crack appeared with the end of this golden age. The death of Marcus Aurelius in 180 AD ushered in a period of instability. His son, Commodus, was a terrible ruler, and his assassination triggered the year of the 5 emperors. A chaotic scramble for power that revealed a deep-seated problem. A broken system for succession. Rome had no clear, reliable way to transfer power peacefully. This led to decades of civil wars, with ambitious generals marching their legions on Rome to claim the throne. This period, known as the crisis of the 3rd century, was a brutal turning point. Imagine being a Roman citizen during this time. For nearly 50 years, the empire was in a constant state of civil war, foreign invasion, and economic collapse. Emperors were assassinated one after another, some lasting only a few months. The empire nearly broke apart, with breakaway states like the Gallic Empire and the Palmyrian Empire declaring independence. To fight these constant wars, emperors needed money and loads of Italiano. So they did something that sounds familiar even today. They devalued their currency. The silver content in the Roman denarius coin plummeted. What was once nearly pure silver became little more than a bronze coin with a silver wash. This led to hyperinflation. Prices skyrocketed, people's savings became worthless, and trust in the economy evaporated. Trade networks that had been the lifeblood of the empire began to crumble. Farmers, burdened by heavy taxes and unable to sell their goods, started abandoning their land. The vibrant, interconnected Roman economy was grinding to a halt. It was in this chaotic environment that Emperor Diocletian came to power in 284 AD. He was a tough, no-nonsense soldier who realized the empire was too big and too complex for one man to rule alone. So, he made a radical decision. He split it in 2. He created the Tetrarchy, a rule of 4, with 2 senior emperors called Augusti and 2 junior emperors called Caesars, one for the east and one for the west. This was meant to solve the succession crisis and make the empire more manageable. In the short term, it worked. Diocletian stabilized the economy and the borders. But in the long run, this division created 2 distinct cultural and political entities. The Greek-speaking East grew richer and more stable, while the Latin-speaking West became poorer and more vulnerable. The split was becoming permanent. Then came another game-changing emperor, Constantine the Great. After winning yet another civil war, he reunited the empire under his sole rule. But he made 2 monumental decisions. First, in 313 AD, he issued the Edict of Milan, which effectively legalized Christianity. This was a seismic shift. Over the next century, Christianity went from a persecuted faith to the official state religion of the Roman Empire. This fundamentally changed Roman identity and culture. Second, in 330 AD, Constantine moved the capital of the empire from Rome to a new city he built in the east, Constantinople, the new Rome. This move solidified the East's importance and left the old capital, Rome, increasingly isolated and less significant in the grand scheme of imperial politics. The heart of the empire was no longer in Italy. As the Western Roman Empire weakened internally, the pressure from the outside grew relentlessly. For centuries, the Romans had fought so-called barbarian tribes along their frontiers on the Rhine and Danube rivers. But by the late 4th century, something changed. A terrifying new force emerged from the steppes of Central Asia. Their brutal advance westward created a massive domino effect, pushing tribes like the Goths, Vandals, and Franks into Roman territory, not just for raids, but to find new homes. In 378 AD, at the Battle of Adrianople, the Goths inflicted a catastrophic defeat on the Roman army, even killing the Emperor Valens. This was a psychological blow from which Rome never truly recovered. It proved that the barbarians were not just raiders anymore. They were a force capable of destroying Roman legions. The empire's response to this crisis was telling. Unable to defeat these large groups, the Romans started hiring them. They began a policy of using Foederati, or barbarian allies, to fight in their armies in exchange for land within the empire's borders. Essentially, Rome was outsourcing its own defense. While this seemed like a pragmatic solution, it was a disaster waiting to happen. These groups were often loyal to their own commanders, not to the Roman emperor. You had a Roman army that was increasingly not Roman at all. This created a vicious cycle. The more the empire relied on barbarian mercenaries, the less capable it was of defending itself, leading to the need for even more mercenaries. The Roman military, once the most formidable fighting force in the world, was a shadow of its former self. The 5th century was the final act for the Western Roman Empire. The central government had lost control. Provinces were breaking away or being overrun. In 400 AD, the unthinkable happened. The city of Rome itself was sacked by the Visigoths, under their king Alaric. For the first time in 800 years, the Eternal City had fallen to a foreign enemy. The shockwaves were felt across the entire empire. Although the city was not destroyed, the psychological impact was immense. If Rome itself was not safe, what was? This was followed by another devastating sack in 455 AD by the Vandals, who had crossed from Spain into North Africa, captured the vital province of Carthage. Breadbasket of the Emperor built a fleet to terrorize the Mediterranean. By the mid-5th century, the Western Roman Empire was an empire in name only. The emperor in Ravenna held little real power. The real authority lay with powerful Germanic generals, who commanded the army. In 476 AD, the final, almost anticlimactic moment arrived. The Germanic chieftain Odoacer, commander of the Roman army in Italy, deposed the last Western Roman emperor, a young boy ironically named Romulus Augustus. Odoacer didn't even bother to name a successor. Instead, he simply sent the imperial insignia, the symbols of power, to the Eastern Emperor in Constantinople, signaling that a separate emperor in the West was no longer necessary. And just like that, without a major battle or a grand finale, the Western Roman Empire ceased to exist. So, was it a collapse or more of a transformation? Historians still debate this. There was no single cause. It was a perfect storm of political instability, economic decay, overextension, relentless foreign invasions, and a fundamental shift in its own culture and identity. The Eastern Roman Empire, which we now call the Byzantine Empire, would continue for another 1,000 years, preserving Roman law and culture. But in the West, the collapse of central authority gave rise to the fragmented kingdoms that would eventually become the nations of modern Europe. The fall of Rome wasn't just an end. It was also a beginning. It marked the transition from the classical world to the medieval era. The legacy of Rome, from its language and laws to its architecture and ideas, endures to this day, a testament to its incredible and complex history. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the fall of the Roman Empire. It's a massive topic, and we've only scratched the surface. If you found this interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments what other historical events you'd like to see broken down. See you in the next video.